My topic is the truth about Holocaust denial. The Anne Frank quote that I chose is, quote, "What is done cannot be undone, but one can prevent it happening again," end quote. So this was written by Anne in her diary on the 7th of May, 1944, and later on in the presentation I will be explaining a bit more why I chose this quote. Anne Frank, The Diary of a Young Girl, as Holocaust literature and as a part of history, is an essential read in order for us to try and prevent the Holocaust from happening again, because it is also a literary first-person account. It provides a counterbalance to the Holocaust deniers' insistence that the Holocaust never happened, which contradicts Hitler's actions, including genocide of the Jewish race. So what is Holocaust denial? So Holocaust denial is the belief that the Holocaust didn't happen at all, or that it was very exaggerated. It is also people that deny the actions of Hitler, including genocide of the Jewish race during World War II. So there are people from all over the world that do not believe that the Holocaust ever happened. These people include politicians, artists, professionals, and world leaders. So the first example is Art Jones. Art Jones is running for the United States Congress. He's a strong disbeliever in the Holocaust. This can be seen by one of the quotes on his website. Quote, "This idea that 6 million Jews were killed by the National Socialist Government of Germany in World War II is the biggest, blackest lie in history." Art believes that a few actors and actresses were hired to act as if they survived the Holocaust. He states very clearly in multiple places on his website that there was no proof that the Holocaust ever happened, and in addition to his beliefs, he was also a former American Nazi Party leader. I'd also like to point out that in the bottom corner I have the word Holocaust with a question mark. That's a screenshot of one of the tabs on his website, which shows that he strongly believes in what he thinks of the Holocaust, and it's very important to him that people know how he feels. The second example is Charles Kraft. So Charles Kraft is an artist. He's a painter and sculptor. He is also a Holocaust denier. He makes a lot of controversial artworks, including sculptures of Hitler and paintings of towns being bombed by the Nazis. He's also done interviews in which he has said his thoughts on the Holocaust and said that he thinks it's a hoax. That's a picture of him. I also decided that I didn't want to show specific pieces of his artwork because some of them are very graphic and include hate symbols from the Holocaust. The third example that I chose was Arthur B. Arthur B. is a professor at the Northwestern University. He's most widely known for commending the Iranian president Ahmadinejad's assertion that the Holocaust never happened. He's known to make statements both in the university and for news outlets. He has been interviewed a couple of times, and every time he has said the same things, that he doesn't believe the Holocaust ever happened, and he states that there is no proof, and one cannot say that something as big as that happened with no proof. I also would like to show this example, the Southern Poverty Law Center, because although many people believe the Holocaust never happened, there are also people that do understand the horrific events of the Holocaust and try to educate people about what actually happened. The Southern Poverty Law Center is a nonprofit organization that fights against and monitors the words and actions of the deniers. The organization also monitors other hate groups and extremists. The website provides its readers with information about the Holocaust and defines what a Holocaust denier is. Their goal is to better educate the world's population as a whole and stop deniers from taking their beliefs too far. And it is also very important that people understand and know about these websites so that they can better educate themselves and others. So at this point in the presentation, I'm going to go back to my Anne Frank quote and why I chose it. So I'll just state the quote again. Quote, "What is done cannot be undone, but one can prevent it happening again," end quote. So I feel that this quote perfectly fits within my presentation. Anne shows her optimistic side and her personality. I believe that Anne is insinuating that we must try to make a change in order to prevent a second Holocaust from happening. So we know that when Anne wrote that quote, there was no way she could have known that there would be people who deny the Holocaust and there would be people that try to bring back Hitler's ideas. But without knowing that, Anne still wrote this, knowing how people are and showing that she believes that we can make a change. So I'm just going to show a short video clip of a woman who survived the Holocaust and just some of her thoughts on present-day Nazis.
If I live, I accept to myself I'll never be silent, and I'm not.
Turn the volume up.
I'm not. Nazis that I lived through and the Nazis now, I don't think much have changed. They have the same hatred. Getting an opportunity, I think they could repeat what went on.
So, as you can see, this woman, Sonia, also believes that the Nazis today can bring back what happened in World War II. In conclusion, I'd like to say that Anne Frank's diary and Holocaust literature in general are extremely important for readers to understand the horrific events of the Holocaust. Anne's light-hearted writing and optimistic personality provide a truthful account of what it was like for a young girl hiding in World War II. The stories of survivors create images of the unimaginable circumstances of the Holocaust. We must read and understand these stories in order to try to prevent the Holocaust from happening again. Any questions? Stella?
Is there a specific reason you picked this topic?
I have been interested in the Holocaust for a long time. I love reading books, both fictional and nonfiction, about the Holocaust, and recently in the news there's been a lot, well, recently and in the past there's been a lot of things in the news about people coming out about saying that they don't think the Holocaust ever happened, and that just kind of sparked my interest, and I decided to do what, like, the deniers instead of the survivors. Balazs?
Do you know if any Holocaust survivors are offended by people who don't believe in it?
I didn't have any specific people in my presentation, but during my research I came across many survivors from different parts of the world that said that they could not understand how someone could be presented with all the evidence that we do have from World War II and still believe it never happened. But there are also many survivors that do try to better educate people. Instead of just being upset with them, they try to put it forward and better educate them. Ms. Christopher?
Earlier, someone had asked you a question about why did you focus on Americans for this presentation, or can you explain to this audience what your thinking was about that?
So the three examples of people that I use and the organization were all Americans or American-based. I chose all Americans because while researching there was a lot more information that I was able to find and a lot more specific information on Americans, but I would like to say that it's definitely not all Americans that are deniers. People from Germany, people from other countries in Europe, people from the United States, all of these people can be deniers, and there are deniers from all these countries. It was just a lot easier for me to find information.
Let's see, maybe one or two quick questions. Let's see what the questions are. Maybe if you could just tell us what your question is.
Have you ever had Holocaust deniers in this class?
In my teaching experience, I have. And your question is?
Do you think it may be good to have Holocaust deniers since it makes us study the Holocaust more?
And your question is?
Charles Kraft, why he painted the Nazis doing bad things and he believes they did.
Take the Kraft one.
Yeah. So Charles Kraft is a Holocaust denier, but he's a little bit different than the other examples. He believes that he understands that Nazis are people, and he does believe that Nazis did stuff to the Jews. He just doesn't believe that they did bad things. He doesn't believe that 6 million Jews were killed by Nazis. But he does understand that there were Nazis. He just doesn't believe any of the stuff that's said bad about them.
And Alvaro, for your question, it's much bigger, and it really is a whole separate project. In fact, the Anne Frank House has struggled with that one for years. So we can talk about that after this presentation, but for now, thank you very much, Maya. Okay.